This is a brief tutorial of the game Toy Battle as played on Board Game Arena. Toy Battle is a two-player only game where you are placing troops on a map back and forth, trying to either capture their headquarters of the other player or get enough medals to trigger the end of the game and win. Those are the main two win conditions. If you can place one of your troops, you see you start off with a few troops and you can draw a certain amount. If you can place a troop on their headquarters, or if you can collect enough of these star medals to get you all the way up to here. In this case, and usually it's 7. You will each go back and forth, and on your turn, you can either draw 2 more troops to your hand, or you can place a troop on the board. That's the basics of it. There's some rules about how you place troops and where you can place troops, and then the troops do different things, have different power levels, but it's all in the goal of getting to their side, surrounding these medals so that you can get them, and perhaps taking over their headquarters. So on your turn, you can either draw 2 troops or place 1 troop. When you place a troop from your hand, it has to have a path back to your headquarters. So you can see here all the different places where you can place a troop. Those are all these blank spaces here. And this is one map. I'll show a couple other maps just to kind of give you a sense, because the maps do change, whereas the troops don't. On this map, all of these stone spots and these little towers, which have kind of a special power when you place a troop on them. You can place a troop as long as you have a path back to your headquarters. So to begin with, you can only place, at least on this map, you can only place here or here. But once I've placed here, I could place here, and then as long as, again, I have a path back to my headquarters somehow. If I somehow got up to here and the opponent removed maybe one of those and I no longer had a path, then I would have to create that path again before I can add another troop. So that's always an important thing to remember, is that you cannot place a troop unless it can path back to the headquarters. There's one exception, but we'll get to that later. The other thing to remember when you're placing is that if you are able to surround one of these sections that has one of these sets of medals, it could be 1 medal, 2 medals, or 3, or just depending on the map, there's going to be some number of medals. If you can get have troops on all of the bases, they call them, and surrounding that section, then you get that medal. And this is, in the physical game, it is a medal that you actually pick up and put on your side. It never goes back if you lose a territory, and if somebody else then gains that territory by placing all 3 on there, they don't get your medal. Once you take a medal, it is yours to keep till the end of the game. So in this case, if I had a guy here, here, and here, I would get the single medal. If I had one here, 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 and here, which would take 5, I would get all 3 of these medals. And you could, there are cases where you place 1 troop and it completes multiple sections, and you would get the medals from both of those sections at the same time. As soon as you get 7 medals in this map, and most maps, you win instantly. The other way to win is if you've been pathing and placing, and you eventually are able to place on the headquarters one of your troops, and remember, it has to have a path all the way back to your troop, then you instantly win as well. The other endgame trigger is if one of the players is unable to either draw or play any units. If you get to the end and just can't do that, then whoever ends up having the most medals wins the game. All right, let's walk through a few of the different troop types so you can see kind of what some of those powers are. Again, on your turn, you can draw or place. It's my turn first, so I decide to place this skeleton in one of these spots. I do that, and his power is I can draw 2 troops after I place them. Instead of taking my whole turn to draw troops, just by placing this one, I can also draw troops. Now notice, though, this power level of 1. So that's the other thing about placement. You can place on top of another unit that is on the board. Now, if it's your own unit, there's no restrictions. You can place whatever number over whatever number. So if I had a 7 here, I could just place a 1 on top of it. If I wanted, in some cases that's advisable because you want to have the special power that goes along with placing that. But typically you want to keep the stronger ones on top, because if it's an enemy's troop, you can place over top of their troop if you have a strictly higher number. Not the same number, it has to be higher. So somebody who has a 1 could not place on this one, but 2 through 7, which is the highest, would be able to place on it and take over that spot. Again, they wouldn't be able to immediately because they don't have that path to their base, but as you start battling in the middle, those can start to pile on top of each other. And there are some ways to remove things from a stack, remove troops from a stack, and as soon as one is removed, whatever happens to be underneath it triggers. Well, it doesn't trigger the ability, but it now owns that base. So you could remove something, and the thing underneath it will give the other player some advantage in area control, or maybe you want to remove your own to get a higher level of it. So there's some strategy around that as well. But in this case, I'm just placing one, and it lets me draw 2 troops. And you can see these have different power levels. So this 1 power level lets me draw 2. This one is a higher power level. It's level 6, but it only lets me draw 1. So as the higher number you get, the less powerful the effect of the troop is. It should be worth noting that both players have the exact same troops, 3 each of 7 different types, 8 different types of troops. So you have 24 in total. Sorry. So yes, there are 24 troops for each side. However, 4 are randomly removed at the beginning of each game. So that's why you only see 20, these 4, and then the 16 in the pile. So you can't quite calculate exactly what your opponent has left based on that, because there are 4 random ones that have been removed. Let's then go through some of the different troops here and explain what they do. There's only 8 of them, so it's pretty easy to start memorizing what they do and use them to that advantage. And then we'll go through and show kind of a later game, and then show some other maps and what those powers do. In fact, I'll show you now. This map has a little special thing. Whenever you place on that, you can choose one of your other troops that's on a terrain anywhere, and you can put it back on your rack, which would let you then place it again and trigger the effect again. Or there might be other reasons you might want to do that, especially if it's in an area that you've already taken control over and you just don't need it anymore. That could be strategically helpful. So let's look at the different troops that you can use. Okay, here are the 8 different troops that you'll see in your deck. Again, both players have exactly 3 of them in their deck, and then 4 overall randomly are removed. We have the duck here. Now notice the duck doesn't have a number. Its ability is that it's a joker. It can be placed on top of anything, even the highest level 7. However, it could also be covered with anything else. But if there's a 7 out there and you really want that spot, you can use the duck to cover it up. And then your opponent may be able to cover it up with something like a 1 or something low later, but it is worth that, getting that spot for the immediate benefit of maybe getting the medals or whatnot. The 1 we already saw, when you place it, you get to draw 2 troops. The 2, the army man, the captain here, you can play that, and then you can play another one. And if you have another one, you can play another one after that. The jumbo here, this one's a little interesting. You can place it down, and then if there is a visible, meaning top of a stack, troop that it's connected to it by 1 section, you can remove that from the board, and it just goes into the discard. If it's in the discard, the opponent will not be able to use it. It won't go back into their draw pile. It is just out of the game, unless there's some effect that lets them draw out of the discard, which a couple of the layouts and maps have that ability. But typically, if it's in the discard, it is gone. For the monkey here, the hook, their special ability is that they can be placed anywhere on the board. They don't have to follow the path back to the headquarters. However, you can't just stick them right on the headquarters. There would have to still be a path. You couldn't use that to win the game. Number 5, this one is a little similar to Jumbo, but basically you place the 5, and then at random you can take away one of the troops that they have in their hand or on their rack. You can take it and it goes into the discard. So it just eliminates one of their troops. Star we looked at, it's a power 6. It lets you draw one. And then Roxy, there's no special powers, but it is the strongest one, 7. So it can go on top of basically anything else besides itself. Those are the different troops that you will run across in the game. No other ones exist within the game. Just the map variations will make some. So we will see as we go. Troops are placed. Notice my opponent here stuck the monkey directly on top of my one there. That is, again, the one exception. They don't have to have the path all the way back, which creates some issues for me because now I can't play there because I don't have a path back. I either have to play on top of the monkey or I have to play over here and go on this path. So you can see they've already kind of gotten in my way a bit. I end up just playing on top, using that to draw a troop. And you can go, it goes back and forth. They played their 5, which makes me discard a random one. There, it's now in my discard. I can't play it. And you're going back and forth, playing these things until those end games are triggered. Now again, we'll show an example here. So I placed that 3, which discarded that one over there, 6 over there, because it was connected by 1. You're kind of continuing to fight back and forth. And now I placed my 7 here, which got me that entire section there, and it got me that medal. The medal went over here, and now I'm on my way over there. And I actually am really close to getting a full line all the way to their headquarters, which would be a win. Unfortunately, I don't have any more cards on my rack, so the chances of me holding on to it are slim. But I put this 7 here, which the only way they can get rid of is with a duck, or if they have some sort of way to replace this 3 on top. They could put a 3 on top of this 5 again, because they don't have to beat their own. They can put any on there. So if they put a 3 on this top of this 5, it would get rid of that 7. I don't know if that's what they end up doing. I have to draw. See, they just surrounded that, so they're coming in on this side. So you're going back and forth with this game, and notice I just filled in this, so that got me these 2. Trying to trigger one of those 2 abilities. Notice they played on this and they got rid of this one, I think, because they want to go and play on this in order to get rid of that. Again, you can do it either way. They pulled it back into their hands, so they have that 5, but they could have just played on top of it, a 3. And I don't remember how this game eventually ended, but it is a lot of back and forth. So I ended up placing that one there, and if they don't get rid of it somehow, then I can place right on the headquarters and win the game. Which turns out I do. I think they didn't realize that was one of the those options there. I placed that on the headquarters and win the game. So these are very short games. Typically, they're won by medals rather than this headquarters. There have been definitely ways to prevent that, to keep that path from going, and I think they thought this might have done it, but they would have needed to cover maybe this one here. But you can kind of see how this plays out. All right. The only difference between this game and other games that you may play of this is the map layout. So let's look at another map. Okay, here is another map that we have here. Same set of troops we start out with. In this case, we both are still trying to get 7 medals. All the troops are the same. But the difference on this map is twofold. One's the layout's a little different, and so you see there's all these smaller little sections that just get you 1 medal each, none that will get you like 2 or 3 or a large number. And these 3 middle spots here, when you play on them, you do not get the effect of it. So if I played this 2 on here, I would not be able to play another troop as well. So they just kind of negate whatever effect would be on there. So that is the difference between there. Here's my headquarters, here's their headquarters. Otherwise, plays the same. So I kind of pull a move here where I play, I had a nice opening hand. I play my army guy, and I'm able to play another one, and then I place that, which gives me a medal immediately and discards from their hand. Nice, I get rid of that duck, which is a nice one to have. So, and then, again, like if I had here, one here, and then I placed here, I would get both medals. As soon as you complete any section, and it could be multiple at once, you would get the medals as well. Each map is going to have just a few different things about it. There's one map where there's multiple headquarters for one side, which makes it a little tricky. And it's nice that they can start from 2 different spots, but also they have 2 different ways to be defeated by getting on headquarters. There's one where it lets you pull things out of the the discard. Each one will have just a slightly different variation and layout, but otherwise everything plays the same. All right, I hope this was helpful. That's Toy Battle on BGA. Thanks.